All right, so why don't you run down what happened, what you were charged with, and how you got out of the facility first?
What was I charged with? I was charged with obstructing government procedures, I believe, and public processes for blocking a toll booth, and I believe resisting arrest. And
driving without a license or something?
No, it wasn't that. I was
So you had a couple charges.
Yeah, I had a couple.
And then they arrested you. You got roughed up.
Yeah.
And
for which these things are still pending.
And then when you went from what happened when you were in jail and you were transferred to a mental research center?
Yeah, well, they had me for 14 days until I spoke to you.
Right.
And
you called me on the phone to get in touch with me to find out what I suggested you say and do.
Yeah, because I kept conditionally accepting, but there was something that I wasn't doing that was not right. And after I gave them 72-hour notice, after reviewing and realizing that I did have a physical contract, the contract was the patient's Bill of Rights. And so I put my conditional acceptance, I wrote it on there in pencil, because that's all you have is like a 4-inch pencil. I wrote it on their patient Bill of Rights in pencil, and I submitted it to them, and then they started my release process, and they released me to my family, gave me a court date to appear. When I appeared at the court date, the judge asked me to come into the bar. They asked for the person, for the defendant, who is the corporation, the fictitious entity. They called the name, and I responded, and I said, I conditionally accept your offer to step inside of the bar, conditioned upon that I'm not waiving, that I maintain all of my rights in doing so. And the judge said, yeah. And I said, is that a yes? And then she said, yes. And then I entered into the bar, at which point one of the court officers instructed me to please stand in the box, the little marked off square box that says defendant. And I said, I conditionally accept your offer to stand in the defendant box, conditioned upon the fact that this defendant is not a corporation. And so, of course, I did not stand in the box. And then the judge started to ask me, are you aware of on such and such a day, and blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, I conditionally accept your offer. I kind of cut her off because she was going on and on about all of the charges, and I cut her off because the papers that I had submitted to the court, which are according to the 10 Commandments of court procedures, the last one in is the last one out, and so my documents were on top, and so they couldn't discuss any of the cases as to why I was there in the first place. They could only discuss the reasons for my being there, which were to settle, and close out the account, and to also to ask for an adjournment of 60 days so that I can complete the process. So that I can complete my the administrative record, which was done through the mail, the settle-off process that was done through the mail. And the judge, I interrupted the judge, and I said, I conditionally accept your offer, Your Honor, with these proceedings if I'm not here specifically for the purpose of set-off, settlement, and closure of the account, and to request a 60-day continuance or something to that nature. And she said, well, are you aware that you need an attorney? And I said, well, I conditionally accept your offer, Your Honor, that I need an attorney, provided that this is not a commercial court. And she said, well, this is a criminal court, and so I made a mistake in allowing her to do that, and she told me to be back with an attorney, at which time I showed up, and again, I did not have an attorney, but when they asked me, are you here for so-and-so, I said, I'm here as the principal and the paramount security interest holder on all matters concerning my corporation. And then they said to me, go sit over there, and I went to sit down in the front, and then they never called me again, but they just handed me my 60-day continuance sheet, at which time I did show up, and I just decided to pay the $195.
So when the first time you went in, you had been, I remember you or we filed paperwork that was only submitted last minute.
Yeah, last minute, like 5 minutes before.
5 minutes before we got there, and then we're requesting 60 days time to finish the paperwork to set off the case, and you had gotten it, and you went in there and you basically just repeated a mantra. For the most part, 90% of everything you said was just a repeating.
Yeah, it was just a mantra.
Conditionally accepting the proceedings upon proof of claim that there's not a record before the court to abate the proceedings 60 days pending the outcome of the private administrative process.
Exactly.
And then that's it. In the end, you got that time, and when you went back again, you were offered where they were just going to say, just pay a couple $100 for the court fees, and they would dismiss everything.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's exactly what happened.
Okay. So would you suggest with people to look into private administrative processes and seeing that this stuff does work and that it is certainly an option that you know from experience, if it's done correctly and you have someone who's mentoring you, it'll work and you can have your remedy, right?
Yes, most definitely.
Okay.
And never go into the bar without making sure that you're retaining all of your rights. And yeah is not yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah and yes are two entirely different things.
Right. And when they tell you to sit down, also, would you mind if I sit here?
You say,
you don't want to take.
Would you mind if I sit here?
Yeah, you don't want to take their order. So there's very little things that if you mess up on one or two things here or there.
Yeah, the nuances. Well, you can't obey them. You have to continue to ask questions. Asking questions.
Cool.
The one who asks the questions is the one who's in control, who's the creditor.
Yeah, and one little thing, like when I told you, give the contract back. We were there for 14 days, and we were trying to figure out when you were calling me on the phone, why won't they let you go? Why won't they let you go? Because we know that if you don't give them jurisdiction and you conditionally accept everything that they do and say, you don't take any benefits, they're supposed to let you go within 72 hours, but you were there for 2 weeks. Finally, we figured out what it was. You gave them back the patient's bill of rights, and then they started to discharge you to your family.
Yeah, but I never said what you told me to say. You also told me to say that I conditionally accept your offer to keep me here, conditioned upon the fact that you show me either an original charging instrument, an accusatory instrument, or some kind of an authorizing document that gives you authorization for me to be here. And if you can't provide such, I demand to be set at liberty and walk from this building now. I never said that, so obviously they didn't do that. So first you have to ask.
You don't get what you don't demand.
Yeah, you don't get what you don't demand.
Okay,
yeah.
so that's good enough. Thanks for sharing.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right, bye.